Have you ever been ghosted? Do I have a story for you?
Are you afraid of the dark? Are you scared?
Now, if you're in the paranormal field or basically on Facebook a fair amount of time, like I am, pretty much every second of the day, I'm sorry, you may or may not have seen a video circulating about a British woman who has been engaging in some pretty interesting activities with the paranormal. That is to say, she's been having sex with ghosts. Look, I'm not here to roast her. I'm not here to say whether she experienced what she experienced, whether she didn't, because that's not my thing. I don't tell people that. I just look at the reasons why people experience or feel like they've experienced what they say that they've experienced, and what could possibly cause them to have experienced that, and try and interpret it somehow. The idea of being visited late at night by supernatural beings who want to kind of get down and dirty and a little bit closer than most people would, it's not really a new thing. The earliest reports of what we refer to as a succubus or an incubus can be traced back to the 14th century for the word succubi and incubi. And speaking from a folklore point of view, a succubus was supposed to be a demon or something not heavenly that would prey on humans and basically suck the life out of them. Believe me, I know quite a few of those people in real life. At the time, that was used by the church as a way to, the way that you would get rid of a succubus or an incubus, haunting, I guess you would call it, was that, you would say your prayers, give a confession, be a bit more godly, and then the power of God would save you. Scientifically, these types of encounters are referred to as a condition called sleep paralysis. Now, sleep paralysis is also attributed to things like alien abductions. That it's basically that feeling that you get if you wake up in the middle of the night and the idea is that your entire body is still asleep. When you go to sleep, you have a chemical that is released to kind of stop you from thrashing around whilst you're dreaming. Now, your brain releases that chemical and your limbs will fall asleep. The amount of chemical that is actually released is quite precise. It's supposed for it to last for an entire REM cycle. And then if you were to wake up suddenly, your body will then absorb it and it will be broken down. Now, sometimes your body doesn't do that, or your body may produce a large amount of this chemical so that you might find yourself between dreams and you may wake up, but your body's not awake. The usual reason that is attributed to this by medical professionals is sleep deprivation, an abnormal amount of caffeine in your system, things like stress and anxiety, things that will stop you from having a proper good night's sleep, things that keep your brain overactive to the point where it can't relax properly, so you're continually drifting in and out of sleep. And thus, when you wake up between those dreams, sometimes you kind of reach that sweet spot where your body is asleep and your brain is awake. Now, sleep paralysis is actually quite common. There have been studies that have shown that up to 20% of people actually experience sleep paralysis in their lifetimes. However, there are some people that, of course, are the exception to the rule, and they will actually experience it on a regular cycle. It's something that they're just used to. So you can imagine that back in the day, if someone was going through a particularly stressful time in their lives and it was happening to them again and again and again, considering how predominant Christianity was at the time, and most religions in fact, because there is mentions of sleep paralysis and succubi and incubi in the Quran, and it's pretty widespread kind of thing. People would usually attribute this to some kind of demonic entity, and they would take it as a religious sickness, something that had to be cleansed from them. This also lines up with a lot of the belief during the day that anything sexual or anything intimate was something that was purely for between a man and a woman, purely between a husband and a wife, and anything outside of that was immoral and it was wrong. So you've got a bunch of really stressed people having a really hard time sleeping, who are having all of these really taboo experiences that are kind of, you know, arousing them in different ways. That, yeah, it wasn't a really good mix. So how does this relate to what our friend in Britain was experiencing? I'll add a clip of what she actually described this experience as.
You can still feel it, like it was it's difficult to explain.
Like a weight.
Kind of a weight, but at the same time weightless, and like a physical, there's the breath and stroking, and the energy as well. I think the energy was a lot to do with it. Do you feel a connection?
And does a sexual experience with a ghost end in orgasm?
For me, yeah.
Right, gosh, so wow.
And fan for the ghost?
I just hope so.
Typical sleep paralysis is described as a pressure, like either a pressure on your chest or on your body. You feel weighted down, like you can't move, but it's also quite commonly accompanied by feelings that you're being touched or that there's someone else in the room, because when you're in that position, your brain instantly goes into a fight or flight mode. Because your body cannot move and you are hyper aware, your brain is instantly looking for the thing that woke it up. And because it can't move, it knows that it can't move. So then you get stress chemicals coming in and you start freaking out and you start panicking. And then most people, their immediate reaction is to then become afraid and fear, like something is not right and something is terrible. And a majority of people who experience sleep paralysis actually describe it as being quite terrifying. So speaking from my own experience, I've experienced sleep paralysis quite a few times because I suffer from depression and anxiety. When I have a particularly anxious period, due to my job can be quite stressful sometimes, I will find that I will have sleep paralysis. So these episodes will happen maybe about 2 or 3 times in a monthly period. It's just, I wake up, I can't move, and I might feel someone like touching my arm, or if I'm on my side, someone touching my back. Which is kind of funny because whenever you see videos or pictures of people suffering from sleep paralysis, they're always on their back. But I don't know if it's just me or if other people have experienced this, but I also experience it when I'm sleeping on my side, or especially if I'm sleeping on my tummy. I have a very special sleep paralysis episodes when I'm sleeping on my tummy, and I'll talk about them later.
What might be happening to you could be explained by sleep paralysis, which is just in those early moments of sleep where you're conscious but your subconscious takes over, and many people describe sexual feelings that happen, that it could be that. Could that be a possibility or not?
I don't think so, because my first ghost used to follow me around the house and kind of lure me in, so I was definitely awake while I was walking around.
Oh my god, it is so hot. It's still like 30-something degrees here right now. The reason why I wanted to talk about this is because I have actually had 2 or 3 very, very similar experiences. They're not regular, but they happen. I can kind of tell when they're going to happen. I'll explain from the beginning. I have had experiences where I will wake up, but I'm not actually awake. I know that I'm dreaming, but my eyes are kind of open, but they're kind of shut at the same time, and I'm usually asleep on my tummy. The 3 times that I have had these particular experiences, I've been asleep on my tummy. So I need to do a little bit more research into that. I'm not quite sure if that has something to do with it, but 3 times I have woken up and had sleep paralysis, and those experiences have been sexual in nature. Now, before you say anything, I know it's not a ghost. It's really hard to explain. The only thing I can probably relate it to is like having a wet dream, but you're not asleep. Now, the feelings that I was getting were I'm a grown woman. I'm married. I've done this shit before. I know what happens. And let me tell you what was happening. There was a persona associated with the feelings that I was feeling. Yet I knew that this persona, there's no way that this person could have been in my bed. There's no way that this person could have been in my room or in my house, let alone doing stuff to me the way that I was feeling. What is it that made it so that I was aware of the fact that what I was experiencing was an episode of sleep paralysis, whereas some other people, I mean, do they know, but they don't really want to believe that? Or do they legitimately, are they not able to notice that there is, that they're not dreaming? Or maybe they're not dreaming. Maybe they're just really attractive to ghosts. I don't know. Maybe ghosts like British ladies with perms. The really interesting thing with this that might possibly explain why this sort of thing happens and why it's either fear or arousal is that there is a particular area of the brain that is engaged when this sort of thing happens. This area of the brain is called the amygdala. I hope I'm pronouncing that right because I can't find any audio of how they're... I'm pretty sure it's amygdala. Amygdala, just one. Amygdala is two. You have two of them. Now this part of your brain is responsible for decision making and emotional reactions. Up until very recently, it was very commonly associated with giving you the feeling of fear. However, studies have shown that it can actually be used to kind of blur that line between fear and arousal, which explains a lot of things if you're in the BDSM community. This type of thing as well in the modern community isn't actually that unheard of as well. If this is the first time that you've heard about someone having sex with a ghost, you probably haven't been listening that hard. We've had celebrities like Lucy Liu and Anna Nicole Smith have actually been quoted as having sexual experiences with spirits, which look, personally, until there's more data recorded on the subject, I'm leaning towards the sleep paralysis camp. Mainly based on the scientific evidence that I've come across and my own personal experiences. Now there's actually a special name referred to this particular type of paranormal experience, and it's called spectrophilia, which sounds quite nasty, but Now, spectrophilia is also used to describe a fetish for sexual intercourse. So it's not just the act of having it happen to you or having that experience where you feel like you have experienced that particular thing, but it's also having a fetish for that particular thing and wanting it to happen to you. Now, as to why this particular psychological phenomena may exist, there's a lot of reading to do on this, and I don't want to start making harsh judgments about people. However, it usually will pop up when there are intense disconnects between a person and their sexual partners, or a person and their family, or if they're basically just feeling like they don't have that close companionship, which is actually quite an intense human emotion, because the brain is a pretty amazing thing. Anyway, so I want to know if you guys have had any of these types of experiences, whether it is a experience of the spectrophilic kind, or whether you've experienced sleep paralysis before. This is something that I find really fascinating, and hopefully we'll see more of it on the media, because then that means that there will probably be more research done on it. Anyway, drop a comment below, and whilst you're at it, don't forget to subscribe and ring the little bell so you get notifications when there is new videos. Bye.